No countdown music.
No, 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 no. We had to get. We're 1 minute. We were 1 minute late.
Well, welcome everybody back to BS3MD Doctales with Cocktails, hour or so on this fine Wednesday evening. No countdown music, and I'm missing it because it's our theme song, and I really am happy.
You hate
All right.
countdown. No, the new countdown music
Yes.
from
that's what I mean.
Spencer is unbelievable. Spencer Kingsley. To Die Elsewhere is his metalcore band. You have to follow him. He's amazing. I'll throw that out there because free advertising for free music. It's a fair trade.
Exactly. All right. Well, tonight on the show, we have a very special guest as well as a new. I think we should share the story about how we later discovered
We will.
the cocktail of the evening, which we'll be sharing.
Yeah. No, it's.
We just bicycled back from there in the rain.
Mm-hmm.
Ed.
Yeah. See, rain in Florida. See, in Oregon, the rain is this depressing sort of grunge musician tears that fall on you, and they're cold and they're drizzly. In Florida, it's like, holy shit, it rains hard. Like really hard.
Yeah, it's like someone turned the shower head on full blast.
Full blast.
Anyway, it's warm. It's a warm rain though, right?
Yes, which is better. Yes.
It's a warm rain.
Yes. It's like urine.
Exactly.
But without the urine taste.
Except I've never had. I don't even want to go there.
Okay, let's stop right there.
Like, how would you know
right
what that's
there,
like?
we put the brakes on.
Let's end this conversation.
Let's welcome.
Well, I'm going to welcome Desiree. Hello. I'm glad you think we look fantastic for having pedaled in the rain. We cleaned up fast and nice. Yes, we did.
We did.
All right. So tonight on the show, we have actually joining us Dr. Stephanie Pearson, who has been on our podcast before and is actually on our podcast episode tomorrow coming out.
Ooh.
Yes. Surprise, right?
Awesome.
And thanks for joining us for Doctales with Cocktails tonight, where we can sip some drinks and share some stories and have a little more fun than maybe on the regular episode.
I am all in, and I would like to know how you know what urine tastes like.
Well, I think pretty much everyone knows that. It's kind of like, look, you were an OBGYN. Are you going to tell me, in all seriousness, you don't know what amniotic?
I know what amniotic fluid tastes like.
I think it's kind of the same. I'm telling you.
Okay, we have a funny story about that. So our son came home from school. I think he was in 4th grade, and he was acting all weird. And he's one of those kids that's got the big heart. He's like honest. He can't keep secrets. And after a while, he just started to break down and cry at the dinner table or something. And I'm like, what's going on? All right, I'll tell you. He says, I got in trouble at school. I think actually, he was starting to do his homework and he was trying to research stuff and asking questions about germs. I'm like, what's going on? Well, okay, I got in trouble because, we dared each other to drink each other's pee out of the toilet and taste it. And now I have to write an essay about germs. So we know our son tasted urine in 4th grade.
Well, in his defense, urine should be sterile.
Right? Exactly.
So I'm not so sure that the teacher gave the right assignment.
I don't know if the toilet was sterile, but the urine probably. But you're right. The teacher was actually a friend of ours. And so we did kind of, I think, point him down that bunny trail of, urine sterile and you can taste it.
Well, if it's
in the old days, like they used to, if you were diabetic, etc.
Right.
So I think he went down that avenue.
If your urine's not sterile, you can build
a problem.
Yeah, there you go.
It's a diagnosis at that point.
Anyway, it was pretty funny.
Yes.
So
sorry, we digress.
Well, so thanks for coming on the show. We're hoping to have some fun, and since I don't know, there's a couple avenues you want to go down because before we started recording, I was just laughing. We were laughing and talking about names in obstetrics and kids' names, and man, I was just thinking, you got any good ones for us, Tim?
Well, I have one that's completely not related to me. So one of my colleagues delivered a baby as a resident, and this was in inner city Detroit, and they named the child Vagina.
everyone has one of those stories. We
Yes.
had it, but they pronounced it vagina.
Yes. I think I know who you're referring to. I
I
worked
used to think that was an urban myth, but we had one and we got in trouble because it was spelled vagina, but the parents kept saying it was vagina and we were being disrespectful. And I was like, this is what this child is going to get called by every teacher ever.
The best name.
yes.
The best
but
name.
wait,
no,
I swear that when he told that story, because he had come and done his residency in Detroit, it was inner city, and they didn't pronounce it vagina. It was like vagina. And I think they acted like they didn't know what it was, knowing the right
or like Regina,
terminology.
Vagina.
I don't know.
Yeah, right.
But
The best I ever heard, and this is honest to God the truth. I know exactly where I was when I heard this story. So this is a skydiving buddy of mine from San Diego, and I was down at Skydive San Diego, and we're packing parachutes. And I started telling him, funny names of kids I delivered. He goes, no, dude, I have the king. I have the worst names ever. So he was a industrial scuba diver. So he would, fix drilling rigs or whatever. So he would do these welcome to scuba diving experiences for kids in these schools. And he had a kid, and his name was Shithhead.
How is it pronounced?
So he sits
like
there
Saturday Night
and he
Live
looks
sketch.
at this and he's like, what in the name of comments? What am I going to do? This kid's name is Shithead.
Yeah.
Like it's literally Shithead. And he's like, and the kid's completely ignorant. He goes, that's Shithead.
Shithade. Wasn't it Shithade?
Yeah,
Shithade. Shithade.
And I'm like
that's just mean.
It's mean.
It is mean. It's
but
either
if
you're so like naively dumb that you're that dumb to name your kid that.
But if you've read Outliers, where they have the names and at the end of it, there was the family where they had twins, and they named one kid Winner and one kid Loser. And Loser became like a police sergeant and was super successful, and Winner went to jail.
I mean, all right. My biology teacher in 10th grade, his name was Richard Head. And the first day of class, you see where I'm going. The first day of class, he said, my name is Richard. If anyone calls me anything but Richard, you are out of my class. And the class started laughing because you have a bunch of 15 and 16-year-old high school kids.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It's like the funniest thing in the world.
Oh my gosh.
See, I think I would have just owned that.
Right?
It's like, I'm Teacher Dickhead.
Of course you would have. That's you. That's you.
That would have been the better way to go. I think he actually might have gotten more respect from everybody.
No kidding.
Instead, everybody was snickering behind his back.
Right. You should have just played along with it.
Well, then you can but it's a license to be a complete a-hole, which I would love. Like that's the best license ever, right? It's like you gave too many. You gave us too much homework. Your test was too hard. Hey, your teacher's a dickhead. I mean, like that is like the best. That's the freaking hall pass of all passes.
I hadn't thought about that.
So do you ever have to talk anybody out of naming their kid? Otherwise, anything?
Yes.
For real.
One that I remember distinctly was somebody asked me how you spelled Xavier. And I said, ma'am, if you don't know how to spell it, I don't recommend naming your child that. He did not like my response and said, that's not what I asked you. I asked you how to spell it. And I said, well, the real spelling is with an X. If you think that that's going to be difficult, you can certainly use a Z because it's your child. You can spell his name whatever you want.
Exactly.
I just think if you have to ask how to spell it, it's probably not the way to go.
Oh my goodness.
So that was one. And then we've had a couple where people were going to name their twins like too close, and we're like, oh, are you sure about that?
Like Molly and Polly, or
Like stuff like that.
yeah.
You know, where like one letter's different. Like we actually had one where the name was exactly the same. It was Jenna and Jenna, but one had one N and one had two N's.
No, that's like George Foreman and all his Georges.
Right. And I was like, are you sure you want to do that? Like they should really have their own identities, i.e. their own names. Yeah. I mean, we've seen some pretty interesting.
Wow.
Remember
Yeah,
Uretsky, May? So there was this like unbelievably great seasoned obstetrician that trained us. And every time somebody, like, you know, he would deliver a baby, oh, what are you going to name them? You know, and they would come up with some super avant-garde, you know, I'm the only person in the world that named the kid this.
Right.
And his response was, I delivered 3 of those this week.
That's awesome. Yes.
And it was just like poking the balloon with a pin. It was absolutely amazing.
That is pretty cool.
You could just hear the deflation in the room. Oh,
you know, I don't have a whole lot of room to talk. Our kids, we have a Jacob, which is, you know, very biblical.
yes.
And then we have McAllen, who goes by Mac, but such a stupid story. But I'm Jewish and my husband's not. But I really wanted our kids named in kind of Jewish tradition, which is you name somebody after somebody that's passed. And Jacob is actually my grandfather's name. My brothers and I all said that our firstborn boys would be named after our pop-up Jack, whose birth name was Jacob. So we have a Jack, a Josh, and a Jacob. When it came time for our second son, my other grandfather's name was William. But my father's name is William because it was my mom's dad. And my husband's father's name is William. And at the time, they were both alive. So I was like, we can't name him William. And we could not agree on a W name. And we were out drinking one night. And me thinking I'm funny, I say, well, if we can't come up with a W, let's flip it upside down. And we'll come up with an M name. And at the time, my husband's favorite scotch was Macallan. And he, thinking he was funny, was like, let's name him Macallan. And I'm like, Mac Myers sounds pretty cool. So sure, why not?
I'll drink to that.
Really,
I love it.
That is how he got his name.
That's a great story.
Well, so our
That's
son,
awesome.
our son.
Well, we copied you with our son. There you
so go. This is a great story too. Like it's very moving. So May got to meet my grandfather before he passed. And he was an unbelievably cool guy. And he had no middle name. So he was Jacob J. Kawalenko. So from what would I think now be Belarus. And Mace, after she encountered him, she said, if we ever have a boy, that's his name. And that's how he got his name.
And of course,
So
it was
it's
at the
exactly
time
the
when everybody is named Jake, right? And Jake, you would know that.
Yes, I feel terribly. My Jacob had 4 Jakes in his kindergarten class.
Wow.
But he was the only one who you had to call him Jacob. Like he really didn't answer to Jake. And it was weird. For the longest time, people would meld his first and last name together. So like there was a Jake, a Jake E, I don't remember what the third one was, but mine, he was Jacob Myers. Like nobody just called him Jacob. It was the whole thing shrunk together.
That's funny. That's funny. I know names with kids is interesting because our Jake, he's always been a Jake really until, he has to write legal documents. But the story with that is our daughter, her name's Olivia, but we've always called her Livy or Liv. She goes to school. She's just used to Livy. And, I think it was picture day. And she came home crying because she's like, they got mad at me because they called Olivia Hindmarsh. And I said, And she goes, finally, someone's pushing me, the teacher. She goes, my name's not Olivia, it's Livy. And then, she and then they're like, it's okay. It was kind of sweet and kind of funny. And then she's like, I guess my name's Olivia, right? I'm like, yes, I thought you knew that.
Yeah. Well, and then now that she's an adult, it's back to the origin name.
Yeah, Livy's not cute anymore when you're 26.
Anyway,
names.
Yeah, I am always curious when Mac is going to use his full name, because he goes by Mac. I mean, nobody calls him McAllen. But
that's like a guy I went to school with.
That's a guy.
His nickname was Woody. His I'm trying to think of his official. What is real? Alan. It's Alan. He legally changed his name.
How did he get Woody out of Alan?
It had something to do with when he was a kid, probably playing with sticks or something. I forget.
My mind went somewhere else. So sorry.
But he legally changed his name, I think, when he was in college, and that's it. It's been Woody.
Well, my buddy Tad, his father's name that everyone knew him by. I honest to God don't even know his real name. It's Boots.
Oh yes,
because he always wore boots when he was a little kid. Because it's Oregon, you got to wear, to protect your feet. So he's just Boots. He's like Boots Davis, like everything. Boots Davis. I have no idea what his name.
Right? I mean, it's kind of cool. My name is so boring.
Well,
so let's go to the origin story.
Say, I don't know. Is there a good story?
Let's go to the origin story of where McAllen and Jacob came from.
Oh, we don't want to get that kind of detail.
Well, we want to know. No,
go back another step, because we all know how it happened.
To the very we know how it happened. We're all doctors. We want to know how you met your husband, because that is an amazing story.
All right, so my husband Ryan is a critical care flight nurse. So when we first met, he was in the emergency room and the ICU, and I was a resident. And we started out as kind of hospital friends, right? You talk to people in house and you never really see them or talk to them out. And fast forward, I am a third-year resident. We have a month elective that you can do anywhere in the world as long as you set it up. I go to Vietnam. This is back in 2004. It is before the iPhone. It is before everyone had laptops. And I'm going around getting email addresses from people because I was told that I would have access to a computer. And him being all machismo and whatnot was like, oh, you're not going to ask for my email? And I'm like, dude, we've never spoken outside of the hospital. You're really going to email me when I'm halfway around the world? Well, he emailed me more than anyone. And I was dating somebody at the time. He was living with somebody at the time, which I didn't know until later. I come back from being away for 5 weeks and I'm on night float. He works only at night and we start talking more. And the next thing I know, there are Reese's peanut butter cups in the freezer with my name on it. He's allergic to peanuts. So he, gets to me through my stomach. And then he says, are we ever going to hang out outside of the hospital? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Fast forward, there is a delivery, and my patient proceeds to have an amniotic fluid embolus.
Ooh, my God.
I proceed to shit myself. I'm like, how did you say that?
Perfectly said.
No,
perfectly said.
I think if you actually look at the
honest.
algorithm of treating an amniotic fluid embolus, it's to make the diagnosis, shit yourself, send patient to ICU.
So for the people listening that don't know what an amniotic fluid embolus is,
it is the most catastrophic complication you can have in a normal delivery.
Basically, for some reason that we still don't totally understand, some of the amniotic fluid leaves the uterus and makes its way into your bloodstream and essentially causes a clot, similar to a pulmonary embolus, but a little bit different. And the mortality rate is through the roof. And most residents learn about it. It's a test question on every boards, but a ton of docs will tell you that they've never seen one in real life.
Yep.
Right.
For sure.
So she's having an amniotic fluid embolus. I'm the third year trying to figure all this out. Actually, I'm lying. It was the very beginning of my chief year because it was in July. So I'm a brand new chief. It makes it even worse. And we call a code overhead. And who do I see running towards the labor floor but Ryan? And pretty much everyone in the hospital knew that he was hands down one of the best nurses. And so he comes running. I'm like, thank God, because he can keep a rock alive. And he literally very nonchalantly is like, I got it. Don't worry about her. She'll be alive in the morning. And I'm like, yeah, okay. But he takes her to the unit. And maybe a couple minutes later, I get a phone call. What the fuck is a fundus? And I say, didn't you fucking go to nursing school? He said, you want to come hang the fucking drips. So after the third F-bomb, I'm like, touche, because I can't hang the drips. So I walk over to the ICU and, press on her fundus, which for everyone listening, right, it's the top of your uterus. After you have a baby, you need to clamp down. And so you do regular fundal checks. He was thinking eyes, right?
Oh my gosh.
It kind of makes sense, right? Like, because he's not dealing with a whole lot of post-pregnant people in the unit.
Right.
God, right? So, and they're stock orders, right? So like you go into the computer and you check boxes. So I show him and I'm like, but by the way, unless you see like blood pouring out of her, don't worry about her fundus, keep her alive. And literally like a week later, we went on our first date. And 12 weeks later, we were engaged. And we have now been together 18 and a half years.
That's awesome.
No,
I love it. I love it.
I love it. It's a very it's pretty similar to us. We dated for a year and we were engaged for what, 3 months, 4 months? I don't know.
Yeah, 3.
Not very long.
I stalked him. It was weird love notes that instead of Reese's peanut butter cups that I stuffed in his locker and put on his windshield and made these anonymous tales that they had to actually I say they because he would take them and we'd sit in the common area at lunchtime with all our classmates and he's like, I'm getting stalked by some psycho. And he'd start reading that and he goes, anybody know who this is? And then for a little while everybody's laughing and it's like, I think it's some guy that likes you. And then he's like, no, I think it's somebody from high school. And it was a little dropped hints about me and my life and my interests and hobbies, but I changed my writing and changed enough stuff about me that he, didn't know.
Yes.
Anyway,
how'd you find out?
Eventually,
I think eventually.
I
was trying to drag it out until Valentine's Day and surprise him.
The totality of evidence and the fact that we were such good friends, and then I was like teetering on, okay, like this is, clearly, if you want to have a successful marriage,
you need to
but how did you figure out I was me?
I was like, there was no other. There was no other options at a point. I mean, after like 2 months of this, there was no other options.
No one else came forward.
So I was like,
what are you doing?
Must be this psycho friend of mine that I sit beside in class.
Yeah, no, it was fun. Like we
were friends in class for a long time because I was ahead of Tim for a while. I dropped out of med school, came back, and then started sitting by him in class. And then he was funny and made me laugh. And then we became friends and hung out. And then, I'm like,
said,
I think
you know
like
what?
him.
I want to marry an unbelievably muscular lawn ornament.
Okay. I'm not sure where I should go with that one.
Yes. Well, I'm not very tall.
He's like a garden gnome. There you go.
Kind of a garden gnome in that regard.
A biker. Actually, we have a little biker.
We have a biker garden gnome, which is
his like
apparently me.
Anyway, yes, and so that happened, and then we had a short engagement because we had to do the match for residency together. I'm like, come on, make a decision, and then 32 years.
Awesome.
So here we are.
Okay,
so we did the reverse. We only dated for 3 months,
right?
But then we were engaged for almost a year.
Ah, well.
So you guys, we flipped it. But I found out later that friends of ours were taking bets on when we would get divorced.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
Well, I had always said I was never getting married. I was never having kids. It was not in my life plan. And I had had relationships that were like 5 years here, 2 years there. So when it came to the, are you kidding me? You guys started dating in July and it's October and you're engaged. Like, what is wrong with you? And I just kept saying, I think I know what I know. I was 30 years old. I was a doctor. I was on my own. I was paying my own bills. I was like, I've kissed enough frogs. And again, it hasn't all been, unicorns, sunshine, and roses.
Right.
Anybody that tells you otherwise is full of shit. But,
It's funny how life changes you. I said the same thing. I was like, I don't think I ever want kids. No thanks. I'm not cut out for that. I've dealt with enough babysitting and kids in my childhood that I'm like scarred and done. And then, things change. And
you're like, I want to have his babies.
I know.
No, that's exactly
a few years
right.
ago, I'm like, let's have another one. And he's like, good Lord, lady.
No, it's the most primally human thing there is, is to raise a family. Like
I literally came out of the bath. This might be too much information. I have no secrets. I literally came out of the bathroom and said, buddy, I just pulled my Marina.
I love it.
And he was like, we weren't going to talk about this. I'm like, oh, we're talking about it right now.
This is fun. This is how doctors communicate. I mean, drive our kids nuts. I'm sure yours too. But
exactly. And actually,
that's sexy talk, right? I just
no,
pulled my Marita.
That's what I said.
Oh, dude. Yeah, no, that would be. And actually, it's not hard to do if you know what you're doing. No speculum needed. For
None. None.
It shouldn't be hard.
That's why he's like, shouldn't you see your doctor for that? I'm like, I know how it works. I and pulled it out.
Well,
but for those listening, don't try that at home.
Yeah, don't try that at home. It's not highly advisable.
I can't remember. I think it was our first child, because I was delivering a lot of
somebody that had one stuck to their head.
Oh, we've all been there too.
Yeah,
no, I have not.
Where he was holding it.
Oh, isn't that ironic?
Was he flipping them off at the same time?
No, but I do have a picture. I have an ultrasound picture. One of the very first ultrasounds I ever did. A kid gave me the finger and I kept it hooked to the inside of my little red book. Remember the OB?
Yes. Yep.
I remember it was red. I can't remember what it was called though, but it lived in that jacket for a decade or more.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
That's so
I think I would have put that on my badge.
No, but I remember.
I have it somewhere.
That's great.
When when May had our first child, I got up and she was kind of contracting off and on all night. And so it was nothing really spectacular. And I got called in for another delivery. And I looked at her and I said, look, tell me what I have to do.
But the place was
do I have time?
They wouldn't let me in.
Do I have time to go
deliver
a baby and kick one of these women out?
And then you came home.
Or what? So I went in, I don't know, like 5.
Yeah.
And I delivered somebody and I came back and I'm like, how are you doing? I'm okay.
So he had to check me to see how far along dilated I was, to know if they needed to make room at the inn, so to speak. And that I'm like, this is getting weird.
He's a trained professional.
No, I know.
Exactly.
I know. Anyway, how many people can say they do that at home?
Yeah, I had my husband check me. I started contracting with both of them around 26 weeks. And I'd be like, I'm not going to be that person who goes in and isn't doing anything, and I just need to be hydrated and so I'm like, you need to check me. And he was like, that really makes something that's pretty sexy not sexy. And I was like, buddy, these are about to get a whole lot not sexy. So check me so I know if I have to go to the hospital or not. And ergo, I did not have to go to the hospital.
No, yeah, and you'd be like, I'd do it myself if I had what are those arms and that character on one of the Invincibles, or no, what are those superheroes?
Go Dr. Gadget.
You have Gadget. You do have the Invincibles. One of them was like
super stretchy.
No,
arms.
I would.
Yeah, I would have just done it myself.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I circumcised my son because
I couldn't do.
I
We
A,
did. We
didn't
did
want to pay
together.
for it,
And he
and
peed on
B,
you.
I trusted no one more than I trusted myself.
No, I get that. Well, God, my husband's gonna listen to this and kill me. So my husband gave me 2 boys, right? Because we know that that's where we get the Y from. However, neither of them had working gadgets, so to say. So our first had a huge hydrocele. And so we put off his circumcision until they did his hydrocele repair. So he was done in the OR. Our second one had a horrible hypospadias, like really bad. And he too was eventually circumcised in the OR because they needed to use the foreskin to create his shaft
Interesting.
and do all the so thankfully, in a weird way, there was no chance for me to do the circ. We had talked about it leading up to it because I was like, I don't really want to moil doing this on my kitchen table. Like I do it every day and it's sterile and nobody's watching and I can cry and he can cry and but as it turned out, both of them needed to be done in the OR. So we got a free pass.
Saved by the OR.
Right?
Correct.
There you go. A blessing in disguise with all that stuff going on.
Yep.
Wow.
So
and I'm just like, hey guys, I don't really want to talk about it, but does your junk work? And then they're like, Mom, leave us alone.
Yes, that's good. That's normal.
That's totally normal.
Yeah, but I'm curious.
Of course. It doesn't matter if you're a mom and you're a doctor, you still can't get away with it. I think people ask that stuff and
no.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
That's what I'm like, I'm a doctor. They're like, you're still her mom.
You're still my mom. So good.
Like,
So bugger off.
Mom trumps doctor every time. That's guaranteed.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So what I think is really interesting and what we will talk about tomorrow when tomorrow's show comes out.
Yeah.
Is how you are able to reinvent yourself as a physician, which is not common. You had this horrific injury. You learned the hard way about how disability insurance works, or in some cases doesn't work.
Yeah.
And then you literally transitioned from this very narrow scope of knowledge, because physicians are very highly trained, but we are very narrowly trained, which people don't really get.
Yeah.
To a completely different world and have been very successful in that. I think that is absolutely amazing because a lot of doctors in your situation would have just curled up in the fetal position and said, like, what am I going to do now?
I thought about it, and I think I told you guys when we talked about it, I did go through a period where I was suicidal and thought that my family would be better off if I was dead because I was worth a lot dead. And because of what I learned on both the disability and life side, I was really only thinking financially. And I was like, look, I'd be better off to them dead than disabled and not working. And it took me a while to get out of my own way. And I truly think that without sounding incredibly trite, it really came down to what legacy I wanted to leave my kids with. I might not have shared this. My mom probably was a horribly controlled bipolar sufferer, and she attempted to take her life multiple times in my childhood from the time I was 13 until I was about 21. And all I kept thinking to myself, and that was why I never wanted to have kids. I did not want to do to human beings what my mom did to me. And having that thought process when I was finally able to kind of get off the roof was, this isn't how I want them to remember me, right? Like that's not how I want to go down. And I decided with a lot of therapy and pharmacology that I wanted them to see somebody rise out of the problem, right? And what was I going to teach them if I got kicked and I stayed down? Oh, no pun intended. I wanted them to see me come back, and I wanted them to be proud of me, and I wanted them to be able to actually say, that's my mom. And I dabbled in a bunch of stuff. I did some biotech consulting. I did some medical editing. I did some med mal defense work. And the insurance stuff didn't really fall in my lap, but kind of fell in my lap in that I was talking about it to anyone who would listen. And people started asking for my help. And I was like, maybe? And it was really my husband that was like, you now know more about this topic than just about any insurance agent or broker I've ever met. So go get licensed. And I was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I'm a doctor. I'm not a salesperson, and he's like, but that's it. You're an educator. And that's what's going to resound with people. And fortunately, it has. And that's really where it all started.
Wow.
No,
I love that.
It's such a great story. But I have been reading Man's Pursuit of Meaning.
Oh, yeah.
Viktor Frankl.
Everyone should read that book.
No, you have to read it. It's a classic. It's amazing. But it's fascinating because, he quotes Nietzsche, which is, the quote of, you can, what is it? If you have a why, you can deal with any how.
Correct.
So when you have a purpose, you can deal with almost any level of suffering. And he himself proved that by, observing and suffering himself through Auschwitz.
Yeah.
And that's it. So your why was, what are my boys going to see? What legacy am I going to leave for them? And then you figure the how out when you have a why. And I find that so powerful.
And most of it was gut and hustle. I mean, I didn't know how to run a business. I didn't know, how to do most of the things that we've ended up doing. Thankfully, I'm also a firm believer of nobody does it by themselves. My husband has been my biggest supporter. He was constantly pushing me and did a lot of the back end stuff so that I could do the front end stuff. So he, created the LLC initially, and he got our EIN, and he did a lot of the stuff that I didn't really know how to. And I was so focused on getting the information out to people that he handled really most of the back end. And now he's our CFO. So it's really cool that we get to work together too.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah. And May and I have worked together a lot, and it's fascinating. People are like, how do you do that? And I said, here's the key. We have worked together for decades as equals, and it's amazing. When we weren't equals, and she was my nurse for a little while, it was a freaking disaster.
10 months. That was not a little while. It was awful.
Yeah. As long as I tell her, I would just give her orders because that's what doctors do to nurses. I'm like, call this patient. She's like, you call them. They're an asshole. I'm like,
yeah.
And but that's really crazy because from a relationship perspective, this whole partnership of equals is unbelievably powerful.
It's been really nice. I mean, he'll still joke, like if something happens and he's got to fix it or clean it up, he's like, Jesus, I've been taking care of doctors for my whole life. And I'm like,
there you go.
Well, you're not going to stop now. So
that's true.
Because, it was not easy. I don't think he would admit it, but it wasn't easy in the beginning. We switched roles, the traditional roles, right? Mommy was the doctor, daddy was the nurse. It was a little bit confusing for kids who would be like, what do you mean your mom's a doctor? What do you mean your dad's a nurse, right? So we flipped that from the get-go. And I'm sure that it had to have an impact. And it's been really nice because we are complete equals now. We make the same salary. We get the same distributions. there's no differentiating between the two of us.
No, that's awesome.
So were you going to ask and run a couple of scenarios by Stephanie to see what she would think?
I was, but this has been so great. I don't want to.
I
don't want to screw it up with like nonsense when, this has been a little bit more heavy, but really powerful conversation because, we don't get to have these kind of conversations that, especially on Doctales, right? Like, because mostly I'm losing my shit over how Canada's burning their country down or, something like that.
Yeah.
Like get in line.
Yeah.
And this has just been so refreshing because
thanks.
it mirrors our relationship to a certain degree, but it's still very different. And to see like we live in a country, we live in a nation, we live in a world where people have forgotten that what really makes the difference in your life is resilience. It's physical resilience, it's emotional resilience, it's relational resilience. And you're somebody that's yes,
absolutely.
And
I'm learning that right now.
You have been very resilient.
Well, thank you.
And that is super awesome to see.
Thank
and
you.
If our listeners want to learn more, especially if you're a doctor that needs to be covered, then listen tomorrow.
Please.
Yes, absolutely. And gosh,
I adore you guys.
I'm trying to remember the other episode that you were on. Desiree will probably look it up right now and ping us so we can remind everybody. But I suggest people go back and listen to the first episode that you were on the show just to get the broad information on the importance of and your story about needing disability insurance, life insurance, and just what's important, especially in physician life and how it is to get covered. But we get into more nitty gritty on the show tomorrow and the details of that. Tim was going to throw some silly scenarios your way, but now I think it's just
another time.
Cliche.
I don't want to buzz it, but we do have to talk about what we're drinking.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
So
for us,
this is Suncoast Gold. We made new friends today at the Loaded Cannon Distillery, which is literally 1.95 miles from our house, not 1.95. They are amazing. They have like 38 different flavored spirits. They have bourbon. They have like everything. This vodka is fantastic.
Yeah. We got a tour.
When we got a tour.
Ironically,
I think we're going to do
the owner
a live stream from there.
Yeah. The owner, and his buddy, Mike, that run it is actually a chemical engineer. We started talking and it turns out he worked all over. And at first I thought he was in the military because he moved so many times. Turns out he worked for Dow Chemical and then actually worked up in Canada at the plant where my cousin lives and works. So I'm going to have to see if he even remembers him. But so it was super fun. The place is really cool. And they have amazing spirits. And
it's all kind of pirate themed because it's Loaded Cannon.
Yes.
And I was like, I've been telling May every morning to release the booty. And somehow it doesn't work. The cannon's loaded, woman.
This is too much for Stephanie.
Because
oh my gosh.
I think you and my husband are cut from the same cloth.
Well, it's just kind of the man cloth.
I'm just gonna say
maybe.
I'm sorry. The Canadian thing. I'm sorry.
You're sorry?
Take a sip of your beverage and drown.
Well, we want to do scenarios.
But
we can.
So people could go to loadedcannondistillery.com to check it out. If you live in the area, we recommend coming. And tomorrow night we will be there because they're having trivia night, and Tim will never say no to trivia night. So
are you a big trivia buff? I'm kidding. You and my husband, I think, would be friends if we lived, kind of close, because we couldn't be further apart if we tried it.
No kidding.
Tim
is a trivia buff.
If you want to go through some of these scenarios,
Tim's a trivia buff, except when we come to the local club here where we live.
I'm gonna pee my pants
because it's out of his genre, so to speak. So we live in our gated community, and the first story we shared, it was super funny. Our son, who helped us move to Florida, was here. He's super intelligent, aerospace engineer, knows all this trivia. They're both into sports. So there was this trivia night at the club on, I don't know, in the fall. And so the three of us go, and I'm like, I'm just there to help with some of the random questions. And they think they're going to win. Well, they had these teams of 8 and 10 people, and we were doing great in the first round. When the second round came along, all the questions were these music themed questions. And basically, you had to put the name of the band to the song that they sang. And of course, it was all stuff from my mom's generation, like from the 40s and the 50s. And at that point, our son Jake just said, "Oh, this is BS." And he gave up and started reading his book. And Tim tried, but we lost. I think we were second last because the music portion killed us, because it was all stuff that, my mom listened to. So that was the end of trivia. So anyway, maybe he can redeem himself tomorrow.
It's funny because Ryan and my Jacob are amazing at Jeopardy. And I don't know why they know what they know or how they've made it into their long-term memory, because I feel like a numbnut watching Jeopardy with them.
That's what I always say. I try every now and then. I'll get 1 of 10,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, how do you know all this stuff, and where does it go in your brain?
And half the time they're like, I don't know. I just must have heard it at some point.
Yeah, Tim he's always saying, I don't know, like, don't you remember that? I heard that, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, where do you pack that away in your Rolodex of your head?
Yeah,
I guess mine's too busy thinking about what the grocery list is and when the laundry needs to be done. I don't know. I pack it full of useless garbage, but
I mean, I get so excited if I get a couple questions right and they just slay it. And I'm like, I don't get it. I don't get it.
I don't either. We're talking about Jeopardy and
No, but it's a
all the
completely
trivia
different,
stuff.
it's a completely different way of thinking.
How do your brain even thinks of this?
No,
crap?
it's
What
all
team won the World Series in 1984. I mean, who cares?
Well, yeah, but it's all algorithms. It's like, I know where I was. I know what was happening.
He's a savant, I think.
Right, but I can't remember the grocery
It's Timmy
list.
McGuire.
But and it's funny because my husband will say the same thing. He's like, I don't know why I knew who made that painting, but don't ask me what I had for breakfast. So it's that whole long-term, short-term memory thing. I don't know.
Yeah. Like,
I used to say that
if he opens the refrigerator door and stares in there, he still can't see the milk, but he can tell you.
No, I think butter has a cloaking mechanism that makes it invisible.
I've not heard that one before, but if that's your story and you're sticking with it.
I think so. So if you want to get into some scenarios, have you
That's up to
you. We looked up the 10 worst insurance fraud cases in the United States.
Okay.
I'm sure I was thinking she's probably read these already and heard of them. In fact, there's one that just hit the news 3 weeks ago. Did you hear about it? About a doctor who, I think it was in Michigan. And they didn't say the details, but mostly it was she was on disability, collecting all this money, and then returned to work, and they caught her. So she has to pay a massive fine. And a lot of these are based on people that are trying to, collecting money and then still working.
Look, at the end of the day, there is always going to be dishonest, fraudulent people, period. Right? We're never going to get away from that. It is part of the human diaspora. Is that the right word? So I've heard some stories locally. I've heard some nationally. It all goes back to, look, I want those people to get caught. Right? I mean, we want.
Now, you don't make just for people to know, you don't make the decisions on who gets or denied. No, you're on the other end trying to help people.
I'm trying to help people get the best coverage that they can.
Exactly.
And I am known for saying, I'm okay being famous. I'm not okay being infamous. Right. So I need people to be honest, right? I need people to not lie. And we give people plenty of chances to provide accurate and real data, right? And every now and again, something comes up and I hear back from an underwriter and they're like, this wasn't disclosed on the application. I'm like, I am not omnipotent. Let me go back and see, right? And so I don't want there to be fraud. And if there is fraud, I want it to be found, because we need these companies to be
Right.
solvent, to
Exactly.
pay the realistic, real claims that people have. So, you know, I can tell you that the worst one that I heard, and I don't know if this made it on the top 10, was a dentist who was injecting lidocaine in his fingers and claiming that he was losing his sense of touch and dropping instruments.
I think I heard that.
And it took private investigators to figure it out, because he went out on claim. And then, you know, I'm sure that I had a PI following me around for a while, and they caught him doing it. Like,
Whoa.
I mean, that's some real pathology. Like, if
Right.
you can go that far.
That's very, yes. In fact, what was it last week? We were sharing on Doctales what these guys were in, what, Taiwan? The ones that soaked his legs in the dry ice.
Dry ice.
So that
froze
he
his
froze
legs
his
off.
legs, so they had to be amputated.
Right. Like, I mean, that's real mental pathology.
No, it is. But,
Right.
But from my perspective, I don't want there to be fraud either. But if there is, I want it to be freaking
Colossal.
hilarious.
Right. Because you want to have a good story.
Yeah. Like, so Nicholas Dupuma, a cooking mishap that seems straight out of a slapstick movie, raised alarm bells for a Delaware home insurer after a local man claimed that a kitchen accident caused his home and convertible to go up in smoke.
Was the
According to
convertible
the Daily Star, Nicholas Dupuma tried to put out a fire from a burning pan with a dish rag, but it also caught fire. So he took the pan and threw it out of his front door. Unfortunately, it landed on the backseat of his convertible, setting it ablaze. A second pan also caught fire, but as he was about to throw it out, he tripped over a box and the pan landed on his leather sofa, instantly igniting it. Authorities were not convinced by his explanation, with the presiding judge describing the events like a plot of a Three Stooges movie. Dupuma pleaded guilty to second and third degree attempted insurance fraud. He was ordered to pay $37,997 in restitution, and was sentenced to 5 years probation.
Listen,
Whoopsie.
people are creative.
Yes.
Right? I mean,
I heard a story locally where we lived about someone's house burnt down, but by the time the fire department got there, the grand piano was on the lawn.
No.
Wasn't it?
No. That is a person my brother-in-law used to work for. His wife was a concert pianist.
That's right.
He was a very expert mountain climber. Like, literally, he was on the first ascent of Everest by a Canadian team.
okay.
So they were this incredibly eclectic couple, right? So they had like no children because they were into this like super avant-garde stuff. He was gonna like never come home from a mission because that's what happened to big mountain climbers. And she's this concert pianist. Their house catches on fire, and conveniently, there's this massive chainsaw wound on the front of the house, and the grand piano is sitting on the lawn whilst the fire department comes.
I mean, that's just stupid.
I would think so. Yes.
Right? I mean,
but
there is more PNC fraud that I'm aware of than disability and life insurance fraud, although it exists, right? I mean, people fake their deaths, and
yes,
there's tons of them.
In fact, I just read about that.
But every single, like, we've read several of these, and the faking the death stuff is completely insane, because every single time they get caught, it's because they post on social media.
Yep.
If you're dead, don't post on social media unless you're Jesus.
Right. I mean, but that's the kind of stuff that jams people up. Like, there was a local, not my client, there was a local case for a nurse that went out on disability for, I want to say, like a low back leg issue. She friggin' got caught at a beauty contest type of thing in like 4-inch heels, shaking what her mama gave her. And it was plastered every outlet had pictures of this woman, and that's how she got caught. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, if you're gonna be fraudulent,
Just
maybe be smarter about it. But I
Yeah,
mean, that
but
lends
it's
itself to the whole
back to
Right,
conversation of like the
exactly.
people that are going to be fraudulent aren't the brightest and
Right.
are probably going to get caught.
Exactly.
Right.
You
Well,
had a patient, I think that didn't
oh man, that
they
was
stop
crazy. That was back in the days of
hire a
VHS
PI and follow
tapes.
her around?
Oh yeah. So, she'd come in, I can't do this, I can't do that. It was like a workers' comp claim. And eventually the PI came in. And
Mhm.
this is back when you had like the tube TV.
Mhm.
And she brings the tube TV in and the VHS recorder and she plugs it in. And she said, okay, so she could only work 3 hours today because her back's so bad. And then she plays the video, and it was 20 minutes after she left work. And she's post hole digging with here is a 35-year-old woman doing the work of 10, 20-year-old men.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because the PI looks at me, she goes, do you think she's actually disabled? I mean, it was super subtle. And I'm like, okay, I'll get it. I'll sign this off.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the kind of stuff that people get jammed up. And I tell people all the time, if you're honest, your claim will get paid. I mean, that's right. I mean, black and white cases get paid. Gray cases are going to get challenged. But if you're being honest, it should work. Right.
Mhm.
It should. And at least knock on wood with our clients, so far, everyone that's needed to go out has been honest, has been paid. We did have one fraudulent file. Somebody who claimed something happened with her hand and she couldn't write and she couldn't type. And so she couldn't do her job. And I want to say she was a physician assistant. And I send the claims packet, right? And I say, you might need your husband to help you fill this out if you can't write. I get back this 8-page, 10-page document in this like flowery handwriting. So I pulled up something else that we typically have people fill out, and it was very clearly her handwriting. So I got on the phone and I said, look, I can't hand this in. You're telling me that you can't write. This is your handwriting. And she tried to tell me it wasn't. And I was like, okay, I'm going to send it in because I'm just the messenger. But I'm not going to be surprised if this gets challenged and they rescind your policy. And that's what ended up happening, that it was her handwriting. And it was weird because her husband is a doc. He's still my client. And
Interesting.
No,
Wow. There's I think back to someone we know that went out on disability. This was a physician and said that it was because he was losing his mental function, having trouble with his memory, getting early Alzheimer's. And I think they made him do some of the mini mental status testing or something, and somehow someone signed it off, and he was collecting disability for his poor memory. So then we would proceed to do sporting events. I won't even say what, with this person. And I'm like, there's just nothing wrong with his memory. He's totally fine. How on earth do you skate past this? It's just,
yeah.
Well, that one's actually genius, because if you get your neurologist to sign off on it, right? Like the fact that you have past memories with dementia, that actually makes sense. Oh, no, but I can't make new memories.
And that
That's how
person
it
would
works.
have, but most people are going to slip up if they're lying.
Right. You're right.
And that type of thing, I would guess, and I could be wrong, I don't know the file, that they would have made that person go to an independent medical examiner. So there's a lot of keeping up that lie, and eventually people crack, right? I mean, it's why mass murderers get found, and the smartest of smart. So I have word finding problems.
But even the masterminds behind all this psycho stuff that they do, you're right. Eventually, there's some crack in the master plan, and they
which is fascinating. It's fascinating to me. Like, human beings lie like crazy.
Yeah.
But ultimately, at our core, we're honest, because you can't keep a lie up forever. Like, it doesn't work in our brains, right? Because the more you lie, the more you have to keep up with the lie.
That's
the more
like that
people
TV
you've
series
lied
you
to.
watched,
Yeah, it just and eventually it completely consumes you. Yeah. And the only thing that works ultimately is the truth.
Right. And getting caught and paying the consequences. And
right.
You know.
Well, on that note, if you're honest,
how far we've come from how we
all live in Lakewood Ranch.
There you go. You can get yourself a bottle from the Loaded Cannon Distillery.
Loaded Cannon.
And they have, I don't know, I think.
Because all I know is my cannon is always loaded.
Poor Stephanie. You deserve, we'll have to mail you a bottle just to put up with this BS. Total BS. On that note, I want everyone to check out the episode. It's 139 that you were on. And then tomorrow's episode coming out where we have you on again, talking about the importance of disability, life insurance policies, and all the ins and outs and things you wouldn't think of. So thanks for coming on this Doctales and sharing some fun stuff and just being here. It was great.
And if you ever visit Southwest Florida, you have a place to stay.
Absolutely.
Oh, thanks. Actually, okay, so now I'm going to admit my geography lack of information. How far are you from Amelia Island?
Oh, gosh. So Amelia is East Coast.
So far.
Isn't
yes,
it? I'm pretty sure Amelia is East Coast.
We're 35 miles south of Tampa.
Yes.
Yeah, that doesn't help me, but I'm going to go with what you're saying is that's far. Just because Ryan and I are going to be in Amelia Island in some coming month.
I'm almost positive that's East Coast.
Yeah, I literally have no idea. I am a typical American who does not know.
And we're so new to the state that I've heard of it. It's popular, but I'm positive it's at the northeast port, like the uppermost portion of Florida. So we would be far. Like you'd have to go across and down the state.
Yeah, that's not
probably 5 hour drive. So
yeah, that's not going to work. But I adore you guys, and I'm happy to hang out anytime. And if you guys come up to Philly, you have a place to stay here.
Awesome. Well, someday, I don't know, something might take us up there.
Yeah.
It'd be great to meet in person. So I'm sure the guys would have a good time too. We'll take them to trivia night.
Yeah, it's not that far. It's up by Jacksonville.
Yeah. Oh, that's about 4-hour drive.
Yeah,
we're not driving 4 hours. I love you guys, but not
not that much.
Not that much.
No, it's
and on that note,
but our son ran from Jacksonville to Daytona in 22 and a half hours.
I did drive to Jacksonville,
which is 100 miles.
Is he an ultra marathoner?
Yes.
He is now, yes.
It's that or ultra stupid. You decide.
Well, we're going to keep talking. Ultra marathoners. So I follow a few of them. And it's a very interesting bunch. Like, talk about like mental strength. I feel like that's all it really comes down to. I mean, yes, you have to be physically sound, but I feel like most of the people that I've ever talked to in that space, it's more of a mental challenge.
Yes, that's absolutely what he said. He said he learned more about himself during that 24 hours of running than he did in his entire 24 years of life.
I believe I believe it. That's what I've been told from people. That will not ever be me.
Me either.
Yeah, but can you imagine being able to short circuit your life where you can learn that much in that time? Like, I mean, I ran 12 marathons. Every marathon I ran, I was like, I'm not running 7 inches more than 26.2. Like, that was 100% what I did.
Yeah.
And he ran a marathon, and his immediate response was, I want to do a try. And he did an Ironman. And then he did that, and it was like, okay, now I need to do 100 miles.
Now I need to do something else.
Yeah, and like I
the next thing he has to do is last man standing.
Yes,
You guys
that's
know about that, right?
completely insane.
I don't.
So last man standing, and I might not get this totally right, but basically everyone starts at the same place, and it's essentially, I'm dumbing it down. There's a lap, and you have to finish the lap in a certain amount of time, and then like every hour on the hour, you do it again, and it's literally until the last man is standing.
Wow. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
like musical
but
chairs
it's
only
but
hell.
it's no, but it's not the high school track.
No, I'm dumbing it down.
Yeah,
It's in
right.
Tennessee.
You just keep
It's a
going until you're the
terrain.
last
believe.
one.
And
Yeah,
it's in the woods.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, it's completely nuts.
No, this is
Yeah.
all he listens to David Goggins and all that.
Oh yeah, David
Nonsense.
Coggins, Chad Wright.
Yeah.
He's another big one. They're both ex-Marines.
Right,
I have a
right.
thing with ex-SEALs. I find them fascinating. So
Yeah, no
I
kidding.
follow a lot of ex-military people. But
Well,
there's a good-
coincidentally, our son is military.
Well, maybe Jake will be one of those ex-military psychos that does.
Well, that's why
stuff.
Sean Ryan has become so successful in the world of podcasting. The guy's an absolute. I mean, he's a very normal person to listen to speaking.
Yeah.
But if you have not listened to his podcast, they are unbelievable.
Yeah, I really like Chad Wright. I just have to take some of his God and Jesus stuff out because he's incredibly religious and it kind of goes through everything. But he's a fascinating speaker. He's had a fascinating life. And if Jake doesn't follow him, he should.
Chad Wright. Okay.
Perfect.
Chad with 2 D's.
We're back to the name thing.
We're back to the names. Look at how we pulled this full circle.
That's
Full
right.
circle.
That's
Chad.
amazing.
Hi, I'm Chad with 2 D's.
Yeah,
But the best name I ever delivered, ever was Pantera. Let's just I will leave that. I'm not going to give details.
Yeah, I can't wait to go home and tell Ryan that one.
No, and it literally when he died, when Dimebag Darrell Abbott died, they had a candlelight vigil in their backyard. And I'm like, you know what?
Yeah.
You were committed to the brand and you named your kid after the band. And I'm like, dude.
Well, Jose
Mighty Warrior.
Jose Mangan from Sirius crowdfunded and they bought Dimebag's limo and refurbished it. It works now.
Wow.
So if you have not listened to what's it called? Disgraceland.
Oh.
That is one of the best podcasts in the world. Disgraceland.
I have not listened to that.
Yeah, it's very good.
Prime bought them, but the Disgraceland show about the murder of Darrell Abbott is one of the greatest and most chilling rock podcast.
It's like a documentary.
It is
documentary.
It is so unbelievably good.
Yeah, I like the one on Prince.
I'm literally looking it up right now.
Yeah, no, you have to listen to that.
So yeah.
Everyone needs to listen to that. Like whoever the guy is that does Disgraceland, I don't mind giving free advertising. Your craft is so high and mighty. I am happy to praise it.
He writes all the narrative and it tells you like a story. Cool. It's really good.
But the one I was driving in the desert listening to this while May's sleeping, trying to get to Las Vegas in 24 hours from where we lived, listening to this, and my mind is literally blowing up. And she's kneeing me right now, telling me to shut up because I'm talking too much. But you have to listen to that. That is unbelievably good.
Oh, listen, I'll check it out. It says where music meets. Wait, what did I just say? Oh my God, I just lost it. Oh, where music and true crime meet.
Yes, there you go.
There you go.
Interesting.
All
right. On that note, I got to go home and take my meds to go to bed.
And so,
oh my gosh,
do I.
See, I was giving you another plug. There you go. Guys.
Thanks again, Stephanie. So good to hang out with you. Thanks for being here through all of this. And we'll chat later.
I'll see you guys.
Bye.
Bye.